We've all been in meetings or workshops where one person is taking all the airtime. You know the ones I mean, right? The ones that go down rabbit holes, they've got a story for everything, a question about every part of the process. And we need those people, but we also need to keep the meeting or workshop on time and on track. These people aren't malicious in intent, but we still need to wind them in. In this video, I'm going to share 3 facilitation techniques that help people share the air so that you can keep the workshop on time and on track. Hi, I'm Kerry Price. I'm the founder of the Facilitators Network, and I use the principles of deliberate generosity to make sure that no meeting or workshop is ever wasted. I've been doing this work for 20 odd years, and I've facilitated thousands of meetings, workshops, and community conversations. Now I help other trainers and facilitators do it well too. There's nothing more frustrating than one person who's taking all the airtime, especially when the stories they're telling have nothing to do with the meeting or workshop that you're actually in. In this video, I'm going to share 3 facilitation techniques that help you wind it in, but in a respectful way. Everyone else in the room is begging you to do so. This is technique 1. And I had to make this up for a group that I'd been working with over a period of time. It was a great team, high trust, they loved each other. We were doing a series of workshops over a series of months, and there were 3 or 4 guys in the team who were just taking all the airtime. I'd used all my traditional facilitation techniques, which we'll talk about in a minute, but nothing seemed to be cutting through. So I thought, I need to make them aware of just how much airtime they're taking. So this is what I did. When they arrived to the next workshop, I already had on the board a continuum that looked a little bit like this. Numbers 1 through 6, and these funny looking balloons at the top. Underneath each of the numbers, I had brief descriptions around how they like to contribute in a workshop or a meeting situation if left to their own devices. So right down at number 1, I had a description around, I really don't like to talk in a group setting. I will contribute, but you're going to have to ask me directly. Right through to number 6, which is, I love to contribute in a group setting. I don't mind asking questions. I'm happy to lead the conversation. If you need me to lead a small group, all framed up in a really positive way. On the tables, I'd put out a whole bunch of balloons. And first of all, I invited people to just look at the continuum and judge for themselves where they thought they sat if left to their own devices. Once they'd decided on the number, I invited them to blow up their balloon to match the size of the balloon on the continuum. There was a bit of laughter, there was some popping, we needed new balloons, but eventually everyone blew up their balloon, tied the knot, and held it up. What I did next was simply gather in all the balloons, hold the balloons in a bunch, and say, what did you notice? And what they noticed is that the big balloons were overshadowing the little balloons. What we were able to do then is discuss how can we make sure that every balloon can be seen throughout this meeting. Now this wasn't just about encouraging people to let air out of the big balloons, it was also about encouraging the smaller balloons to pump some more air in. Now this was a great team, so over the course of the day there was a little bit of banter around, oh John, you need to take some air out of your balloons, and oh Josh, you need to put a bit more air in. And it became a shared language or a shared reference point where we could each hold each other accountable. Okay, so facilitation technique number 2 is to master the art of interrupting. So you know when someone is on a roll and they're telling a story and they're getting really excited and you're wondering if they're even going to come up for air. It's hard to interrupt someone if they're not even taking a breath. So the art of interruption has 3 steps. The first step is to warn people right at the beginning of the workshop that you might interrupt. So I often say something like, Today's workshop is, we've got a lot to cover, we've got a short period of time, and part of my role as a facilitator is to keep things on time and on track. So I might interrupt you if I feel like we're heading in a direction that's not so relevant for today's session. It's nothing personal, I'm just doing my job. That's step one. Step two, when someone is right in the flow and they're really going for it, is I give them a pre-warning that I'm going to interrupt, and I do that using body language. So I might go, open my mouth, leave it open like I'm wanting to speak, and that's just enough for them to notice out of the corner of their eye that I'm doing something weird. So they'll be like, what's she up to? And they'll take just the tiniest little bit of a breath, which leads to step three. And that tiny little bit of a breath is when I can interrupt. And I jump in by saying something like, oh, I just want to jump in there because I'm mindful of time. It's not about the person, it's not about the story that they're sharing, it's because I'm mindful of time. And I've warned them that I'm going to do that right from the start. So I'll jump in, I'll say, I just want to jump in there, I'm mindful of time. What I'm hearing you say is, and then reflect back to them what it is that you've heard them say. When they know that you've heard them and that they've been understood, they feel completely fine about wrapping it up. And I get it. Sometimes when you jump in, you can't say what I'm hearing you say is because you actually have no idea what they're trying to say. In those moments, I might say, I'm just going to jump in there. I'd love it if you could just wrap it up in about 30 seconds back to the point of the workshop. Or I might just simply turn to the whiteboard and start writing what I think they're saying. And if I've got it wrong, they will take a breath and tell me. So that's the 3 steps to mastering the art of interrupting. Warn them at the beginning, signal you're about to, and then jump in with, I'm just going to jump in because I'm mindful of time. Oh, and as a side note, that's harder to do online. So online, I use this card. I tell people at the beginning of the session that it's part of my role to be on time and on track. And if I raise this to the screen, it says, I love you. What you're sharing is wonderful. And you've got about 30 seconds to wrap it up. Technique number 3 is the matchstick method, or the popsicle stick method, or the peg method, or the whatever you've got lying around your workshop room method. How it works is you give everyone in the room 2 or 3 or 4 matchsticks, and every time they speak into the room, they must toss one of their sticks into the middle of the table. Now, I don't use this right at the beginning of a discussion. I let people free flow, we're contributing, we're engaging, we're getting out what needs to happen. But this is something I will bring in near the end when we're coming to a decision making. Final arguments, I guess you could call it. What's wonderful about the matchstick method is no one wants to waste their matchstick on waffle. So they're really intentional about the voice or the opinion that they bring to the discussion. What's also cool about the matchstick method is it means those with quieter voices also need to contribute. You can't sit on matchsticks. So even if it's just to say, hey, I agree with Josh, or I agree with Mary, they need to use every matchstick they have in hand. Of course, lots of loud voices might not be the only reason that quiet participants aren't speaking up. In my next video, Facilitation Tools and Techniques for Engaging Quiet Participants, I share 5 reasons why quiet participants might not be speaking up and give you some practical strategies for how you can bring those voices into the room. I'll see you over there.